I am going to talk to you about relationship rights. Now, we don't hear a lot about this in Christian circles now like we used to. In the 80s, 90s, a lot of times you would hear Christians need to lay down their rights in their relationship. For me, that was a big issue in the 80s in my marriage. When I heard that, to me, it meant just don't ask for anything in your relationship. Don't expect to be treated well. You don't have a right to boundary. You don't have a right to say no. You don't have the right to say something hurts. And where people get that from scripture is the fact that Jesus laid down his rights. It's like Jesus died. He laid down his rights. And Christians are supposed to love one another and lay down everything. A true brother, a brother dies, lays down his life for each other, just like Christ did. So we get this idea that you are supposed to do this in relationships. And it's not really what scripture's talking about. And that was just kind of a teaching that was off. In scripture, two of the things that I look at is one, in Acts 16:37 through 39, Paul said to the officers, "They beat us publicly without a trial, even though we are Roman citizens, and threw us into prison. And now do they want to get rid of us quietly? No. Let them come themselves and escort us out." Paul was in jail, with the disciples, some of them, and they had been arrested by the Romans, and they didn't have a right to keep them. And Paul was like, no, they can show everybody what they did. The officers reported this to the magistrates, and when they heard that Paul and Silas were Roman citizens, they were alarmed. They came to appease them and escorted them from the prison, requesting them to leave the city. In the United States, we have all kinds of rights. Constitutionally, we have Bill of Rights, we have legal rights. I don't ever hear Christians saying, just, let the government walk on your rights and lay everything down. No, it's always just in relationship. We have a right as citizens and as people to say, hey, you have walked on my rights. You're not respecting my rights. Then 1 Corinthians 9:11 through 12, Paul says, "If we have sown spiritual seed among you, is it too much if we reap a material harvest from you? If others have this right of support from you, shouldn't we have it all the more?" So Paul is saying, basically, we have a right to be financially supported, as we do with our pastors today in the church. We have a right to be financially supported if we are ministering to you. And they did have that right. But Paul said, but we did not use this right. On the contrary, we put up with anything rather than hinder the gospel of Christ. So the reason that Paul did not take advantage of that right is because he didn't want to hinder the gospel. For some reason, he felt that taking money from them would hinder the gospel. That's a great reason to let go of your rights. In a relationship, if it's going to cause the person to disrespect you, which it often does, or to continue to treat you badly, or to continue to do what's going to hurt the person or somebody else in your family, then no, you don't lay down your rights, okay? You don't lay down your rights and allow things to happen that are not good because you're laying down a right. That's not what scripture's talking about. You can choose to lay down your right if it's for a good reason, but you don't have to lay down your right. So what are some of those things? A right is something you know that you're entitled to. If someone violates one of your rights, you can let the person know that you are entitled to your right being respected. Now, here are some of your relationship rights, and I just really want you to think about these. I'm literally going to read them and then pause for a second and read the next one so it will sink in. And if you want a copy of these, please go to my website and changemyrelationship.com, and in the search bar, type in relationship rights, and you will be able to download this list. It is one of my devotions that people get if they subscribe to my devotions, way on down the line. Okay, here are some relationship rights. 1, the right to be treated with respect. The right to be heard. The right to be asked to do something rather than to be ordered to do it or to be manipulated into doing it. The right to an apology when you have been mistreated. The right to say yes or no to anything that affects you. The right to know the truth and not be lied to. The right to speak your truth. the right to make mistakes, the right to be a person with independent interests, even if you're married, the right to take care of yourself emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally, and relationally, the right to ask questions and receive answers to things that affect you, the right to live free from abuse, the right to believe, feel, think, and perceive things as you believe, feel, think, and perceive them, the right to not be touched without giving permission, the right to change your mind at any time, the right to say no without having to justify or explain, the right to be treated and spoken to with courtesy, the right to your own opinion. All of these are rights that you have in every relationship, whether it's a marriage, with a parent, with an adult child, with a child, with a sister, sibling, employer, all of these things. These are your rights. And you have a right to stand up and say when one of your rights has been violated or when one of your rights is not being respected in your relationship. And the only time that you would not is when you are in a situation where to do so would hinder your witness. Now, there are times that that is true. There are times that I have heard accounts of Christians who were in countries where they were being persecuted, where they tolerated mistreatment and persecution, and they continued to love, as Scripture tells us to do, with our enemies. And in that time of being loving to their enemies, they were able to persuade them that Christ was real. And those people ended up giving their lives to the Lord. And sometimes that doesn't happen and people are literally martyred for their faith. But in our intimate, close relationships, where it is not an issue of witnessing as a Christian, it doesn't work. People do grow to disrespect us and to have more and more contempt for us. So be really careful that you are wisely interpreting when it is right to lay down those rights and when it is not right. Okay? Thank you for watching this video on Change My Relationship. I hope this helped. And again, if you want the list, you want to be able to read these rights, please go to changemyrelationship.com, type in relationship rights in the search bar, and this devotion will come up for you. Okay? Thank you.